Hello, my name is Theo Holtwijk. I'm Director of Long Range Planning for the town of Falmouth. I'm here with Nathan Poor, the town manager of the town of Falmouth, and today we want to talk a little bit with you about the Route 100 project. As you know, it's a question on the June 14th referendum. It's question 1, and we had some requests from people to explain a little bit more about the project and particularly how the project will be financed. The Route 100 project, we have 3 parts to our presentation. What is question 1 on the June 14th referendum? What improvements are being proposed for Route 100? How much do they cost and how will they be paid for? And lastly, we want to talk a little bit with you when and how is the town going to get the Route 100 project done. So the first part, what is question 1? And what improvements are being proposed. The question simply is for the voters whether or not to approve a proposal to fund major infrastructure improvements along Route 100. Those improvements will consist of roadway work, drainage work, intersection improvement work, bicycle lanes and sidewalks. What are the current conditions on Route 100? How did this project come about? We have found that the pavement condition on Route 100 has deteriorated significantly. Pavement in Route 100, people may not realize it, is very thick. It's over 3 feet thick of concrete and asphalt that has been added over time. This work was intended to happen in 2009, but it never did because the funds were not available. This is a state-owned road and the Maine DOT did not have the funds. But in the meantime, Route 100 really is not safe for pedestrians and bicyclists, and the stormwater drainage infrastructure, the culverts underneath the road, have continued to deteriorate. And we found that a public sewer is not available on most of Route 100. So if Route 100 is going to be reconstructed, it seemed to make sense to add some public sewer there as well. So in summary, the town's goals for this project have been fourfold. One is to invest in the infrastructure so that we can make sure that today's traffic and tomorrow's traffic can travel safely along the road. There was an interest to re-establish the sense of neighborhood along Route 100, to be efficient with spending our town money and to leverage that money with funds from the state of Maine, Maine DOT specifically. What is the scope of this work? We have a few pictures. The picture there shows you Portland on the left side of the map. North is running to the right. The key part of the work is to fix the 2 intersections that have the traffic signals. One being the Layton Road intersection and the second one being the Mountain Road, Falmouth Road intersections with dedicated turn lanes. What does that look like today? Today from the air it looks like this. We have here Mountain Road and Route 100. With the proposal you can see we're adding some dedicated left turn lanes so that turning traffic can turn in a safe manner. Similarly for Layton Road, this is what it looks like today. You see there's only one dedicated turn lane on Route 100 going left onto Layton Road, but the proposal would be to have dedicated turn lanes on all 4 legs of the intersection. Other parts of the work include a complete reconstruction where you see the turquoise line of Route 100 pavement from Layton Road to a point north of Mountain Road that we call the Libby Bridge. To improve pedestrian safety by adding sidewalks. There will be a sidewalk proposed on one side of Route 100 for most of the work corridor. Improve street and pedestrian lighting with energy efficient fixtures, and adding, as I mentioned already before, some public sewer between Layton Road and Mountain Falmouth Road, fixing the stormwater drainage structure and adding bicycle lanes from the Portland line, the City of Portland line, to the Libby Bridge. That's it in a lightning speed. The piece that was much talked about by the committee that worked on this project was the section from the Winslow Farm to Hurricane Road. That road section also needs work, but it cost $4.2 million and ultimately was decided not to include it because it was too expensive, made the project too expensive, and we could not really afford to do it at this time. So now we come to the key part of this presentation. How much do things cost and how would they be paid for? The project that the committee and ultimately the town council settled on has a construction cost of about $10.2 million. There are some other costs to the project. One is design. We had a plan done by Wright Pierce, a concept plan. We had a preliminary plan done by FST Stantec, and that costs money. Also, we propose to bond for this project, which will lead to some interest costs. And those are all identified here in the pie chart. We're looking at a project cost of $10.5 million, and this pie chart shows the three sources of funds for this effort. The majority being a $6 million bond that the town would issue. The second key part being an anticipated contribution from the Maine DOT of $4 million, up to $4 million, I should say. And thirdly, a portion of the projected tax increment financing balance to help get to the required costs of the project. And that includes the interest costs. What is tax increment financing? That is the vehicle that we propose to use to pay for this project. And people have asked us to explain it in a little bit more detail because it's very technical to some, and people want to wrap their hands around it. Tax increment financing is typically a specific geographic area in Falmouth. We have currently 4 districts. And in West Falmouth, along Route 100, we have something that's called a tax increment financing district at what used to be called Exit 10. We also know it at the West Falmouth Crossing Tax Increment Financing District. That was established in 1998. It was established for a period of 25 years. It will expire in 2024. And it's essentially the complex around TD Bank and around Hannaford, which did not exist back in 1998. And what has happened with that is that those projects were built, and the taxes that those projects generated have been put in a separate tax increment financing fund instead of going into the general fund. That's what happens with tax increment financing monies. So what exactly does that mean? As I mentioned, projects were built, the Hannaford complex was built, TD Bank was built. The value of the property back in 1998, when it was farmland, was about $500,000, but currently the value is about $55 million. A lot of value was added to that specific area. What happens if property gets added to our tax rolls is really threefold that people don't necessarily realize. Even though we get more taxes coming into the town, because the town becomes more wealthy, if you will, because of property taxes, the state aid for schools goes down, and the state share of revenue sharing for Falmouth also goes down, and our taxes that we pay to Cumberland County actually goes up. So not all taxes that we get from the new development are benefiting Falmouth ultimately. If you have funds in a tax increment financing district, those funds are protected from the impact that you have on school aid, revenue sharing, and the Cumberland County taxes. And we've done some analysis over time to figure out how much money would we gain versus how much money would we lose to get a sense of the net effect. And the net effect for Falmouth, that's really important to realize, is that $3 worth of new taxes that go into a tax increment financing fund would equal only $1 of net new taxes if those monies were put into the general fund, if we did not have a TIF. So putting the money and putting them in a separate account helps us 3 times as much as if we did not put it in a separate account. And that's really thanks to the rules that the state of Maine has set up for the intent to encourage towns to use TIF where it makes sense. Why is the state allowing money to be set aside for municipalities? The primary purpose is that the state would like municipalities to stimulate economic development. So it does come with some strings. It means that tax increment financing funds can only be spent on specific projects, particularly infrastructure projects in or near the district that a municipality has established, and in our case that will be the Route 100 project. The other string that the state has attached to using TIF monies, as we call it, is that the state needs to approve what the town wants to spend money on. The state needs to concur that you're spending it on eligible economic development projects. In this particular case, we already have a TIF on the books, but doing the Route 100 project would require us to change the scope and the future work in the district, and we need to change the work plan and term of this existing TIF through an amendment, and that amendment requires approval from the state of Maine. Specifically, what would happen with West Falmouth Crossing TIF district? We're proposing to extend the term from 25 years to 30 years with an additional 5 years. What will that do for us? It will allow the town to pay the $6 million bond back completely with funds that we would get in the future that would be set aside in this special TIF account. As I mentioned already, extending the term and adding the Route 100 project is an amendment that must be approved by the Maine Department of Economic and Community Development, DECD, and we have made an application to talk about that. In summary, because we're funding this project completely through the TIF and we're getting help from the Maine DOT, there will not be any increase in the tax rate for this project. In other words, no new taxes will be required to do this $10.5 million project. No residential taxes are funding this project, and the commercial properties in that TIF district do not pay any extra taxes. They pay their regular taxes, and just a portion of those taxes are set aside in a special TIF fund. For the town to use TIF funds will allow this project to be completed in the most cost-effective manner. You could take it potentially one step further, that if we did not have this TIF fund, the town of Falmouth could not afford to fix Route 100. That's really the summary message that we're trying to share with you. Before we go on, I'm just going to look to see if, Nathan, do you have any comments on TIF financing? You've worked on several TIF districts. Falmouth has used them on Route 1. We've used them on Route 1 North, Route 1 South. We've used them with Ocean View and our natural gas work. It's an important tool for Falmouth, and I don't know if you want to add anything to this.
You're right, Teo, and it's been a vital funding source for us to maintain a lot of the infrastructure throughout town, and especially in the areas that we would call our growth areas or our village areas and our commercial and mixed use areas. Without the TIF, I don't believe we would have the same level of infrastructure maintenance that we do today. So it's been a very important financial tool for the town. And I think this project lends itself nicely to using a tax increment financing district. I think you did a nice job explaining it.
Okay. If anyone has any questions about this, you can always, of course, contact Nathan or myself to get further edification on that. And we're happy to send you the spreadsheets. We did not put them in the presentation because they would be very small and would be hard to read on a screen. Third part of the presentation, I'm going to turn to Nathan.
So the next part of the presentation, which is the last, we promise you, is really telling you, so what is next? What will happen next with this project? But before I go there, I'd like to offer somewhat of a summary of what's happened to date. This particular area, as you heard Teo mention earlier, in 2009 it was scheduled for some improvements. There were improvements that were scheduled before then, and I can tell you that the town council and some interested residents in the area have been talking about potential improvements to this corridor for the better part of the last decade. Within the last couple of years, the town council decided it was an important enough project to take the next step, which was to put a committee together, and that committee has come together and made these recommendations that we're reporting to you today. So this plan that is before the voters is a plan that was developed by the voters, by the residents, and business owners in that area, and we appreciate all their effort. So the steps moving forward in May, this month right now, we're currently working on an amendment to our tax increment financing plan or development plan. That is required if we're going to make any adjustments or amendments in the plan, and it needs to be approved by the state of Maine. We're quite confident that this will be approved by the state of Maine. We've been reviewing some of our amendments with those that would make that decision. And then the next step is really up to the voters. It's June 14th. There'll be a voter referendum question. It's going to be question 1. And to better help you understand what question 1 is, it's basically giving the town council and town staff the authorization to spend $10.5 million on this project using funds from 3 sources, up to $4 million from the state of Maine, which is not a loan. It would be a grant. It would be the state's contribution to this project. We keep saying up to $4 million. It's possible it could be less. It depends on how things are structured in the scope of work and in the bid, and what we receive for bids from contractors. Then we're also asking for the ability to borrow $6 million, and then also use $500,000 from the existing fund balance. What I can tell you that even though this is authorization to spend up to $10.5 million, if there happens to be less money from the state of Maine, then we would still only be allowed to spend the combined $6.5 million that is in Part 2 and 3 of this financing plan. If there's more money that's available from other sources, whether it be the state or somewhere else, the project cannot go over $10.5 million. And the TIF development plan has been structured so that the TIF area can afford to pay all of the debt payments for the $6 million borrowing, so that it won't have an impact on property taxes. Yes, property taxes will be paying for this, but it will be at the current rate that's established based on the annual budget, not based on this project. This project is not going to drive any increases in property taxes. So then we move to this summer and through the following summer. If the voters decide that this is a project that they're interested in supporting, we would begin construction documents, final cost estimates. The town council would be involved with reviews and approvals. We would do some right-of-way work, moving towards what we would call final engineering. And then in late summer of 2017, we would be going out to construction bidding. And then following that, beginning fall of 2017 through the fall of 2018, would be construction. At this point, we're relatively confident that construction will be just 1 year, as opposed to approximately a 2-year construction schedule that everybody saw out on Route 1. And then in 2018, we'll begin discussions with Maine Department of Transportation to develop a design and a funding plan for that area of Route 100 that Teo described earlier in the presentation, that is a little more than $4 million from the Winslow Farm to Hurricane Road. As he said, that area of the road does need to be completely reconstructed rather than just putting pavement on top of bad pavement. And so what we're hoping is that this section of the road will be a future phase to complete out. So we'll start to look at that in 2018. The next few slides are really an opportunity to just give you some before and after photos of what we think the project will look like. This is a view from Marston Street looking south, and the last slide that you looked at is the current condition. And with this rendering, you can see that it's obviously new pavement. You'll see some bike lanes on either side, and a sidewalk on the west side of the road, along with some new street trees and some pedestrian-oriented or scaled lighting. And the next slide will take you, you're looking south of Mill Road, looking south before. This is the before view. And then this next slide will show you what we think it will look like. And you'll see again the street trees. You'll see the sidewalk immediately abutting the road, with the gray line being the curb line, and then some pedestrian scale lighting. And as Teo mentioned earlier, if you do want to learn more about this project, we will be sending out some factual information via mail in a couple of weeks, and there's a lot of information on our website. Taylor, I'll turn that over to you, the last slide, to describe where people can find more information.
Okay, thank you. If you're interested to learn more, you can go to the Town of Falmouth website, falmouthme.org. If you looked under government and committees, you can find the Route 100 committee, or you can go to the search box and search for Route 100 committee. All the design plans have been posted there. The cost estimate has been posted. This presentation will be posted there as well. So there's lots of information available to review. If you do come into Town Hall, we currently have the design plans hung on the ground floor of Town Hall. So you have big drawings that show you what work is being presented at what part of Route 100. And last but not least, you can contact myself with my phone number, email address, or contact the town manager if you have any questions about the project. That's really it in a nutshell. We certainly hope that you go to the polls on June 14th, and we hope that this presentation has helped to be more informed about what you're being asked to vote on.